Call the meeting to order. Salute the flag.
John Jackson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think they're all working.
Okay, I'll read the certification of compliance. The time and notification of this meeting is published in the Advocate Press, posted on the bulletin board in the office of the Township of Lakewood at least 48 hours in advance. The public has a right to attend this meeting, and the minutes of this meeting will be available for public inspection. The meeting meets the criteria of the Open Public Meeting Act. Okay, roll call. Mr. Franklin? Here. Mr. Iverson?
Yes.
Justin Flansbrough? Here. I'm here.
I'm
Mr.
also here.
Coleman?
Here.
Okay. Confirmation of recording status.
Recording isn't working, but we do have a stenographer in the room. We'll be taking the legal recording of this meeting. Transcript will be available, but we won't be able to prepare minutes from the recording.
Just a couple practical things, since we're using a stenographic record. Try to speak slowly and clearly, loudly, one person at a time.
Okay, and Alec, could you please put in a request for the maintenance service to have the...
I can't hear you.
It doesn't work in my, I just asked...
Yeah,
if
it's working.
Now it's working?
Yeah, the mics are
Put
working.
a
just
request
not
then to have the recording system
Yeah,
working properly.
Unfortunately, I've had this happen before, and occasionally the laptop just won't connect to the recording system, and I've had a tech guy come out, and unless it gives me the same problem when he's here, he doesn't know how to fix it. He just says you have to have the laptop completely shut down, plug everything in, and turn it on, and I've done that like 10 times, and it's still not connecting. So we do also, for any of the public who's interested, who don't want to pay the fees for a transcript, there is a member of the public who records these meetings and puts them on YouTube. So there's certainly, while not the board's official recording of the proceedings, they are available out there for anyone who may be interested.
Mr. Klein, is your system working? Yes, good, thank you. Okay, swearing in on professionals. Please swear in the...
I'll do it. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give before this board, believe the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name.
Dave Magno, professional engineer and professional planner.
That is the board's planner and engineer.
Thank you very much. Okay, members,
And who was the,
Okay, members, resolutions, and Ali, please just say who can vote on them.
Sure. SP 2214, Torah Tamima, give me just a minute because this was approved a while ago. Mr. Renner and Mr. Graffos were not there when it was approved. Everyone else can vote on it.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure everyone saw the correspondence back and forth on that. Ms. Donato sent correspondence to Ms. Morris. I presume everybody saw it. She wanted additional things. The resolution that we prepared is what we believe the board asked for. I don't know if Ms. Weinstein wants to say something, but I just want to make sure everyone saw the correspondence from Michelle Donato, Attorney Michelle Donato.
She's not here tonight, is she?
No.
No.
so she's not here, and I just want, oh, I'm sorry.
It's Mrs. Weinstein.
Counsel, your appearance?
Marion Weinstein on behalf of the applicant, Torah Tamima of Lakewood. I just want to make it clear that the applicant agrees fully with the resolution that was prepared by the board's attorney, and we ask that you respectfully pass it. I don't see Ms. Donato present here tonight.
Did you see her letter?
Yes, we had a lot of back and forth. Ms. Donato, myself, Ms. Morris, Mr. Jackson's office was copied on those emails, and then she just failed to respond since last week. We haven't heard from her, and she is not here this evening, so hopefully she came on board.
But the resolution reflects what was discussed at the public hearing,
Yes.
we agreed upon that, right?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, essentially what her correspondence was she wanted a few additional items to be added to the resolution that actually were not discussed at the meeting.
Okay. And if she had any opposition, she would have...
Correct. She knew it was scheduled for tonight. Ms. Morris was very explicit in her emails that this was on for tonight.
And I am in occasional contact via email with her client. I had sent him a draft copy of the resolution. He had indicated he was satisfied with it. I think we're comfortable.
I also called Ms. Donato's office this afternoon to see whether she was coming tonight, and I spoke to her staff, and I never got a call back, so that was probably 1 o'clock this afternoon.
So I think we'll vote on it. We have have a motion?
Offered.
Second.
Okay, roll call, no, all in favor? Any nays? No, approved.
Thank you.
Okay, number 2.
SP 2067, this is an extension of a major site plan. Everyone here can vote on that.
Moved. Okay, all in favor? Any nays? No, approved.
SP 2232 is a major site plan. Everyone here can vote on that.
Approved.
Second.
All in favor? Any nays? No.
I second.
Who made the motion?
Justin.
Mr. Flansbrough.
Mr. Flansbaum, first, and Louis Fullman, second.
Okay, number 4.
And the fourth is SD 2130. This is a correcting resolution for a minor subdivision. Everyone here can vote on that.
Move.
Okay, Mr. Fulmer moves.
Second.
Mr. Justin seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No. Approved. Okay, thank you. Let's go on to public hearing.
There is one change to the agenda. You'll note it on the copy that's available to the public. Application SD 2109 for 292 Sampson Ave neglected to provide notice in time for this meeting. They most likely will be heard on June 20th. Their attorney is working on preparing the legal notice for that meeting, but there's no need to announce that as that notice has not yet been sent. So we can continue with the first public hearing item, SP 2237AA for Congregation Or Matisyahu. This is a change of use, site plan exemption to convert an existing. Site plan exemption to convert an existing house into a synagogue.
Just from experience, when you read, that's when you really go fast. The reporter really has a hard time with reading, so be cognizant if you're reading to really go slow. Lee.
Alan, let's just get it straight. Number 1, 2, and 4 are regular public hearings, and 5 through 11 are all extensions.
Correct.
Correct? Okay.
This will be the easiest to spell among all your names tonight.
Actually, she's working on Flannery, so it might have one
That
end.
one's different, okay.
My name is Samuel Brown. I'm members of the board. I'm appearing on behalf of the applicant. To keep this as streamlined as possible, as your professional as...
One second, please. Let me give it, open up first to Dave.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, Dave, you have any comments on this?
Yes, this change of use, site plan exemption, as far as zoning, you have to act on parking areas within 5 foot of residential side yard property line. In this case, 1.7 foot is proposed. There is a side yard setback variance required. The existing building would be 1.91 feet from setback, whereas 10 foot is required. Perimeter buffer relief is required. 20 feet is necessary from residential property lines. And design waivers are required for curbing and sidewalk along the property frontage and for providing site lighting and site landscaping.
There are no waivers on these.
There are no submission waivers, only the design waivers I mentioned.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
I was going to actually take Dave's limelight and point out those same items, including the fact that this is an existing use and we're simply here, in accordance with the UDO to present to the board a site plan such that these people can be doing what they're already doing, but doing it correctly and under the code. The point, quite simply, is this is an existing house of worship with some other uses on the property, which the engineer is going to testify to. But at the end of the day, the applicant seeks to continue what it is doing, but seeks to be doing everything that's happening on the property with the proper stamp of approval. I'm not going to hog the mic. I'm going to turn it over to the applicant's engineer, Brian Flannery, who's standing to my right.
Flannery, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Brian
Okay.
Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. As Mr. Brown has indicated, this is an application for a site plan exemption. There's an existing dwelling with an accessory structure in the rear. There's an existing paved area with 7 parking spaces. The applicant currently uses the accessory structure for area residents to come and pray. What he's trying to do is make it an established house of worship, and we're asking for site plan exemption because there's no additional construction that's needed. It's a use that's compatible with the area. It's an inherently beneficial use. As Dave indicated with respect to the relief that
The synagogue wants to use the congregation, the back building or the front?
the back building.
And the front building is a
The
residence?
front building is a residence that's going to continue as a residence.
That's the rabbi, the synagogue, or what's the circuit?
My understanding is it's his son who isn't using it in the back. His son is the rabbi for the house of worship in the accessory building to the rear.
Is that the shaded, the one-story building on the plan that you'll
Yes.
use?
That is correct.
Do you have anything that shows what it looks like? You know, is it a shed? Does it look like a conventional house? Is it on a foundation?
It's on a slab. It looks like, the closest I would say is it looks like maybe a pool house in the back.
Does it
Without
have
a pool.
insulation and heat and electric and light and all that, or is?
Yes.
I think, John, that's a building question, a building code. It has to meet building code in order to use it as a synagogue.
Well, I think you should know whether you're approving like a shed
Right.
for
That's
people
what
to
I
use
think.
or an actual building.
Right.
It was built as more of a game room, and it was built so that it was more than a shed. And again, as you indicate, we do need approval from the building department. We need a lot of other approvals. The applicant intends to comply with all the rules. The relief that we're asking, 1.7 feet from the property line, which is an existing condition. The 1.9-foot setback where 10 is required, also an existing condition. And the buffer relief, that's kind of new because changing the use, but it's an existing situation that is not getting any worse, and it's nothing that we can really do anything about. It's used in that current capacity. It's inherently beneficial use. The applicant is trying to be a good neighbor, and he'll comply to the greatest extent possible. The review letter also indicates that we should give testimony with respect to the anticipated parking. This is an area that I'm sure the board is all familiar with. There's a lot of houses in close proximity. The current residents that come there now predominantly walk. There's only been 7 spaces. It complies with the ordinance with respect to the spaces, and there's no intention to change that.
On parking, how is the parking gonna work?
People pull in, and if you get there first, you're gonna leave last. It's the first in, last out.
There's no turnaround to turn around?
No. No.
You have 5 cars stacked up one after another?
Yes. And
You're gonna back out on Compton?
there is room that you can see. It's like a 1 in and 1 out. I pulled in there myself. It's not an ideal situation, but you can turn your car around and pull out. That's what they've been doing when it was a residence and people came over to visit. When they started having residents over to pray, they've been doing the same thing. So there's no change proposed.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the review letter asks that you address items A through C, and then also on the next page, there's items. For example, yes, is there going to be any ancillary uses such as a
There
school?
are no other ancillary uses proposed. The anticipated parking, the 7 meets the ordinance requirement, and it's more than the applicant feels is necessary due to the close proximity of the residents that will be using it. There's no future expansion planned.
Just to go back to B, it says, What is the anticipated parking demand? Do you know how many people
Well,
live in the
they-
household, what the
Well,
number of bedrooms are?
The house would use 2 of the parking spaces, and that leaves 5 remaining.
Is that sufficient for the house? Is, you know, do you know who's looking?
The engineer reviewed it and said that the 9 that we showed, some of them really aren't up to code. So we've agreed, based on the tech meeting, that we're gonna call it 7 parking spaces.
This house is like configured in a way, is it actually 2 houses? It has 2 paper walkways going, you know, looking at the plot plan. There's,
Well, there's 2 separate sections of it, living, connected, and due to the geometry of the property, but it's one dwelling.
one dwelling,
family.
are there 2 families living in it?
No, there's
Or-
one family.
Is there 1 kitchen?
Yes, only 1 kitchen.
1 kitchen?
Yep,
How many bedrooms? Don't know.
I don't know.
Brian, how big is the area you want to use for synagogue?
It's 25 by 37, so the whole building is less than 1,000 square feet.
And there's no simple hall, don't make any.
No, it's on a slab, so there's no basement, nobody's gonna be in the
Not making
basement.
any kids, it's just they're not renting out.
No.
Mr. Herzl, just make sure the stenographer's getting those words that you're using, she may not be familiar with.
They asked if they're gonna use it for any outside parties that, use the website. Thank you.
SIMCHA, Paul, SIMCHA.
Simcha means in Hebrew, out parties. Brian knows where it's
There were other questions, such as
The ADA accessibility, we will have to comply with that, as determined by the building department. The trash and recycling, we understand we'll have to meet with Public Works. If Public Works doesn't agree to pick up the trash, which they traditionally do, we would have to get a private hauler. But traditionally, they stipulate how they would like that done, and we do it in that fashion. We're not proposing any additional landscaping or lighting. We feel that what's there is sufficient, and it is served by existing utilities.
There's a building in the back, it says on the plan, 1-story building in the back left corner, what is that?
That I think is a shed. The building in the back corner. That's a shed, right?
You really can't see it in the aerial.
What's your name?
Mr. Body, or, please raise your right hand.
That's affirmed.
Do you affirm the testimony you give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Shed, storage shed in the back.
Brian, let me ask you, it's not possible to make a turnaround?
It's not practical?
It's not practical?
No.
I'm nervous about cars backing up into County Line Road.
But they don't do it now, so I don't anticipate they would do it. If we make room for a turnaround, we're gonna lose parking.
I don't think the county will allow you to back out.
And John, I'm not so sure the county will allow you maybe 2 openings also on the road. It's a county road.
They won't allow you to back out. You have to come out here first on the county road. So I think if we're here approving it, we should set it up so that they're coming out the proper way.
The driveway is set up that it's got a 1 in and 1 out. And that's the way it's utilized today. It doesn't meet generally accepted standards, but it's an existing condition. If someone were to build it, they would build it a little differently. But it was built this way. The county hasn't complained about it. It's been there a long time. And it's been used in that fashion, and nobody in their right mind is going to back out onto County Line Road, and if you do it, you're only going to do it once. The people that are going there know the neighborhood, they know the traffic conditions, and as Mr. Herzl indicated originally, the first guy that's there, he's planning on praying for a long time, but he doesn't get to leave till the other people do.
Pray for all of us.
Yes.
Is there a way to get when these cars back up, they have a backup spot that they can back into?
If the
and
board,
then back out head first?
if the board feels that it's needed, we would agree to put a hammerhead provisions so that there's an established place for the cars to turn around. They do it on the grass now, but it will,
Just this way you
Yes.
have a paved area
Yes.
where they can.
yes.
M-
We would agree to that as a condition of approval, subject to the review by your board engineer.
Mr. Brown, which shul is this? Which what? Synagogue is this? You know?
My application says Congregation or Matisyahu.
My neighbors.
It says Congregation or Matisyahu, which is the caption of the application. You can have a particular name or flavor or affiliation.
I'm just curious.
I think it's very much generic. Mr. Franklin, to address your point, the applicant has no problem accepting good suggestions, which yours was, simply because our pitch is straightforward. This is a use that's been going on for quite some time. We'd like to get it right, and we need the board's input. If part of the input is that we have a suggestion of how to improve the current use, in spite of the fact that we think the current use is working just fine, obviously we will accept that, so thank you.
Can I just,
Yes.
Wayne,
Just one second, are you Mr. Franklin or?
I'm Franklin.
Okay, Franklin.
to Mr. Frank,
Mr. Jackson.
to Mr. Franklin's point, you know, the county doesn't review conditions that are not up to current code, but when a matter comes before the board has the opportunity to look at it to make sure it's safe, make sure it functions. It's an opportunity to review it. So, you know, to say the county hasn't said anything, that's not really how it works. It's only when you come for an approval that it triggers a review. So it's not a question of suggestions, et cetera. If the board thinks it can improve the conditions or do something that you think is necessary for it to function, you can impose it. And so we're gonna make a condition, the hammerhead turnaround, subject to the review and approval of the board engineer.
So, Brian, how many parking spaces do you have after that?
Would probably impact at the most one, I would still call it 7. RVB, who looks at it a little closer, may call it 6. I think because we had what we felt was parking for 9 vehicles, that we've agreed with them at the tech meeting, it really only by the generally accepted standards, we're going to call 7. I can assure you 9 vehicles are going to park there, and when we put this hammerhead in, 9 vehicles will also park there.
Okay, thank you. Any board members have any questions?
How many services are going to be during the day?
What's your name?
Coleman.
Okay. How many what services?
How many branch services? Are you factory?
You know, it might be helpful if everyone can turn their name plate toward the court reporter a little
can't.
bit, so.
They can't.
I don't,
Very
I
good.
think they're fixed.
Another good idea.
What?
She wrote the names down, she just needs to confirm.
I'm told that,
Mr. Brown.
my name is Brown, Samuel Brown, spelled like the color. I'm told that there will only be 2 services, one in the morning and one in the evening.
Any other questions, any board members? Seeing no one, we'll open up to the public. Anyone here would like to please come forward? Please state your name.
Shloima Klein. SHLOMA. Last name KLEIN.
Klein, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony that you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm. Question, Brian, is there going to be any sidewalks over here? It's not on the plan. And then generally how it works is when things are not on the plan, it usually doesn't go in as this township usually goes.
The county is putting in sidewalks. The applicant would agree that if the county doesn't put in sidewalks, the applicant will put in sidewalks.
So you're asking for a waiver of sidewalks on the record?
On the record, we're asking to wait, we will bond it, and if the county, for some reasons, plans don't come through, the applicant will be committed to putting in sidewalks.
What's the time frame that you'll put the sidewalks in if the county doesn't do it? What do you propose?
I would say 6 months.
Same situation with Kurt?
Kirby.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I see there's a building over here, and you're providing 7 parkings. I know it's an existing building. The question is how big this building is. It really looks like 2 separate units. Plus, you have that unit in the corner that he was claiming it's a shed.
but accordingly to your, whatever plans you have over here, it says a one-story building with a deck. Usually sheds don't come with decks, so I'm not trying to dispute what you're saying, but your plans over there contradicts on what you were told. So just the plans, it looks differently, it's just a little bit funny. But I'm talking about the building. How many bedrooms are there? These are huge monster buildings that a lot of bedrooms could go in, and you might even not comply with the parking requirements, what you need for, even though it's existing, but you're not complying with the parking requirements for these 2 units, that you're calling it one, but it looks like two separate entrances. I know this building that you have over here for the garage that you're making it into a sanctuary, making it to Mesmedish, is below 800 square feet, and the current zone does not need parking, but you might not even comply with the parking that you're having in this existing building, and we don't know if there's basements or attics, it's a whole building it doesn't have. But I'm just asking, you come over here and you're saying is you don't know how many bedrooms there are, and you might not even comply with the parking requirements for the existing units. So the question is, what makes you think that you're complying with parking?
Because we need to comply with RSIS, that's the standard for parking, and the RSIS only goes up to 3 parking spaces per unit. We have 7 parking spaces that the house can use. I testified what the typical usage of the house is, and Google Earth is up, and you can see that there's only a couple cars there. The typical usage for the house is a couple cars. So 7 is more than adequate. It complies with the RSIS standards. So my testimony is that it complies with the parking standards.
I just want to clarify what Brian is saying. I don't know if everybody understood over here. The RSIS speaks only up to 5 bedrooms. That's correct. You only need 3 parking spots. The UDO takes over from 5 and above how many parking spots you need. And the UDO tells you if you go up to how many bedrooms and all that. So the question is, your compliance with RSIS, the question is if you're compliance with the UDO. You're not coming over here to testify for the board, to give them a perspective. You have 2 monster buildings, and how many bedrooms is in these buildings? Answering that, you don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as the parking, that's the building over there that you're talking about? That you have, the parking is in a different way, not like you're stacking it up over here?
That's the same.
This is,
There's parking different, yeah.
so the existing parking is different than you're proposing over here?
We propose parking in accordance with generally accepted standards. I'm sure you listened to my testimony and heard that.
So the parking that you're proposing, they're parking now differently than you're proposing on the site plan?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Dave,
I think
could
it's,
you clarify how many bedrooms are there and how many parking spaces do we need?
first of all, it's a site plan exemption was submitted. So I can't tell you how many parking spaces are required because, as Brian has testified, we also do not have any information on the existing building to tell you how many is required for the existing. I think what is important is that the board decide what they're approving for conforming parking space, because the applicant's engineer already testified they're gonna provide a plan with a turnaround which is gonna affect the parking configuration. Is the board gonna approve 7 conforming parking spaces, I guess is my question, which I think is the intent. And there may have to be some other changes besides just providing the turnaround to do that. Or are they gonna ask for 6 spaces? So I think that needs to be clarified with the approval.
The way I see it, I think you have room to put 7 parking spaces. We have to take away from the grass area to put it in the hammer.
Yes, but what Dave is implying is that a typical parking space is a perpendicular parking space, 18 feet deep with a 24-foot paved access aisle behind it. And that's not what the applicant is proposing. The applicant is proposing parallel spaces in the fashion that we've shown. in a driveway, more of a stacked driveway configuration, that then will provide a hammerhead in the traveled portion of the driveway that the vehicles can back into and pull out straight onto the, so the applicant would agree to fit at least seven parking spaces that can form in size
That's what you're showing.
with, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Correct, so in other words, you wouldn't have the constant 24-foot backup aisle
That's
because you
correct.
have parallel on the other side.
That is correct.
Understood.
Anybody else in the public would like to be heard in this application? See no one come forward, we'll close it to the public. Do we have a motion on this application? Vote up or down?
I'll move to approve the application
With the hammerhead?
stipulation that we have the hammerhead and a minimum of 7 parking spaces.
Get you back in a second.
And the sidewalks go in 6 months?
And that the applicant's gonna bond for the
Curb
curb
and
and
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
That's fine.
That the applicant's gonna bond for the curb and sidewalk, and if the county doesn't,
I'm sorry.
the applicant's gonna bond for the curb and sidewalk, and if the county does not install the curb and sidewalk within 6 months, the applicant's gonna install curb and sidewalk.
Thank you. Mr. Flansbaum made a motion and Mr. Coleman seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Hibberson.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Herzl.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman. Ms. Zagrafos. Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, number 2.
The next application is SP 2235, made by Congregation Alexander. This is a preliminary and final major site plan for a synagogue.
Ira Harris, here.
1 second, please. Dave, first.
Yes, there are some issued waivers with this application. A request to waive an environmental impact statement, and a request to waive the tree protection management plan until, just for completeness purposes, so it would be a condition of approval. And architectural plans have been provided for the public hearing, so there is no longer a submission waiver required for that.
Do we have a motion to go along with the engineer's recommendations? We have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, no, okay, the waivers are approved. Okay, Dave, continue on to zoning.
Okay, zoning, the project needs a rear yard setback variance. The rear yard is proposed to be 10.67 feet, where 15 feet is required. A variance is required for side yard setback. 5 feet is proposed, where 7 is required. A variance is required for combined side yard setback. 14.67 feet is proposed, where 15 feet is required. A maximum building coverage variance is required. The proposed building would cover 34.3% of the site, whereas 30% is allowed. Relief is required for parking area closer than 5 feet to side property line. Relief is also required for perimeter buffer of 20 feet to a residential property line. And the fencing that is proposed for the buffering exceeds 4 feet in the front yard, so that would also require relief. As far as design waivers, they're requesting a design waiver from providing street trees as well as a shade tree and utility easement along the frontage. And the design waiver is required for the width of a non-residential driveway. In this case, it's 36 foot wide, where only 30 is allowed.
Thank you.
Ira Karas, appearing on behalf of the applicant, Congregation Alexander. Ira Karas,
Harris?
Karas, Congregation Alexander, the applicant. As Ali and Dave indicated, this is an application for preliminary and final site plan for a shul, 2-story shul with a basement. Shul's located on East 7th near Whitmore, and I'm going to let Brian get into the details.
Mr. Jackson?
Do you swear from testimony you give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. As indicated, it's an application for a neighborhood shul on 7th Street. It's an existing residential lot, 7,500 square foot lot. We're proposing a 34-foot wide shul. The applicant needs relief for the rear setback 10.67. The 10.67 is measured to the landing for stairs going to the building. The actual setback to the building itself is 20 feet, which would comply with the ordinance. We're also asking for minimum side yard setback. We're asking for 5 feet because we have a bump out in one portion of the building. That's 1.33 feet. We have a 6.3 foot minimum side. At one point, there's a bump out that takes away that 1.3 feet. So it leaves 5 foot open. The rest of it is 6.3, and we have a combined of 14.67, where 15 feet is required. The building coverage, we're asking for 34.3%, where 30% maximum is allowed, and we're asking for parking within 5 feet of the property line. The only parking that's really there, if you look at the application, we have 4 rows of double stacked parking, and the most westerly double stacked parking is the handicap parking, and it's got the access area for the handicap vehicle. So the parking is closer. The applicant is proposing an 8-foot high privacy fence along both property lines to provide the relief for the neighbors.
The numbers you were saying about the variance are different than what says on the chart on your sheet. Where it says 33%, and it says 34%,
I noticed that as well.
and they're 5% and 7%, are different numbers.
There were slightly different numbers in the review letter
Go
as
by my
opposed
letter.
to what I believe what was shown on the plan.
And I was going with Dave's review letter. Dave is usually right.
So these have to be corrected.
Yes. We're asking relief from the perimeter buffer, and again, we're providing an 8-foot fence. The RVV report notes that 4 foot is the maximum that's allowed in the front. We are asking for relief to keep the 8 foot in the front as well. If the board doesn't feel that's appropriate, that's certainly in your discretion to say 8 foot is too high in the front setback. The design waivers from providing street trees, there's really no place for them. If the board wants us to stick one on the property line or something, the applicant would be happy to do that. And the design waiver for the non-residential driveway in excess of 30 feet in order to maximize parking here. And we are providing more parking than the ordinance requires. But to maximize parking, we felt this was an appropriate way to do it.
Is there any on-street parking in that area?
It's limited on-street parking in the area.
It's very limited, because one block down from here on Cornelius Street, there's a synagogue that's very active. They have a lot of members, and they totally park everything, every spot there. They'll put the cars in there the day before, and you can't get through. It's already too crowded.
You live in the area.
Yes.
What's the maximum space that you give on this property?
My opinion is that is the maximum space of 7. The ordinance would require 5. We're providing 7. I don't see how you would fit more on this.
What's in the basement?
It's a normal basement, and certainly the applicant would agree to the typical restrictions where no parking is provided for a party hall, that the basement would not be used for any parties except on Shabbos or holidays when there is no drive.
No outside parties?
Yes.
Now, I know that
Mr. Frank,
it's permissible in the area, but with one block away, with a large group of people that they have going there, there's not enough room to put another one in. You've got to go over and take a look at the situation. There's another street that goes, Cornelia Street goes down, both sides of Cornelia Street are marked with the lights. All of these 7th Street, all the way down to this street, it's totally full. And they have a parking lot, I don't think it's colored for 15, 20 cars. And they can't go, it's very active.
And there's very narrow streets there also.
No, it's not very narrow, no,
This is
Well, the applicant has met with the neighbors. My understanding is that they,
No,
Not sure.
no,
okay.
no.
Nobody's agreeing, please. Have I had a chance to speak?
But obviously, the neighbors seem that they have something they want to say. We submitted a plan for an inherently beneficial use. I can read the master plan of 2007 on page 39 for how this works.
Can I just, the inherently beneficial use issue, it doesn't matter because the use is already approved. That's an argument that you make when you're seeking a D variance in front of a Board of Adjustment. The use is permitted.
Okay, so then it's a beneficial
It's-
use.
It's not a question of whether the use is allowed or not. It is allowed. But the other question is whether the variances should be granted and if the site can work. So
The variance is being granted, it's a balancing act between the benefits and the detriments, and a beneficial use such as a house of worship, it provides benefits to the general public. The master plan of 2007 on page 39 has a section on houses of worship, which reads, there's an acute need for sites for neighborhood synagogues based on an explosive growth of the Orthodox Jewish population and the developed nature of the community. Sites are needed in close proximity to members' homes. And that's what we're doing here. It goes on to say the need has only been partially addressed. And the type of house of worship Mr. Franklin is talking about is a larger one that draws from a large area where the people are going to be driving. This is more in accordance with what this section of the master plan says. It's in close proximity to the neighbors' homes. The page 56 of the same 2007 master plan says encourage growth and development in appropriate locations consistent with established land uses, encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning. And my testimony is that this is redevelopment based on smart growth planning. There's a need for a small shul like this to address the needs of some of the neighbors who don't want to go to the larger facility down the street that has a bigger crowd and people from further around that's taking up the parking. This is going to accommodate people in closer proximity that are able to walk. The municipal land use law, NJAC 40:55D2, under the purpose of the act, is A, encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use. To encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And it's my testimony that this does promote the general welfare. G is to provide sufficient space and appropriate location for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, industrial uses according to the needs of the citizens. And this does meet the needs of the citizens. So to get a C2 variance, we need to show that the benefits outweigh the detriments. And when we're talking about the needing for the variance, it's only that we have 14.61 feet instead of 15, and only that the side, because we have the bump outs. If the board feels those variances aren't appropriate, we'll make the building a little smaller, we'll fit in, we'll have no variances, and we'll have the same use, which is a permitted use on the site. It's my testimony that the minimal relief that we're requesting, the benefits outweigh the detriments. we have to show that this can be granted without any detriment to the public good. The public's gonna get up and they'll tell you if there's issues that need to be addressed. And certainly the applicant would work to address them. And to the extent that they can't address them, then we would have to eliminate the variance relief that we're requesting.
If you eliminate the variance relief, the building becomes a drop smaller, how many more parking spaces will you get?
Well, we're not gonna get any more parking spaces by making the drop smaller. The variance in the rear is for the steps getting up to the rear. We could put them on the side and arrange them in a different configuration where that doesn't create a variance. The width of the building, if we make it 7 inches narrower, that's not gonna get us any more parking. So the variance relief that we're requesting doesn't relate to parking. The design waiver that we're asking for the more than 30 feet in the front, if we comply with that, we're gonna lose parking spaces.
Can I, just, Mr. Herzl, the applicant seeks variances per the review letter. The one is, the steps in the rear yard, 15 feet required, 10.67 is proposed. So if, you have to ask yourself, if they have to move those rear steps into 15 feet, what does that do to the back? Can they design around it? The chances are it'll make the building significantly smaller. Similarly with the side yard setback of 5 feet versus 7. If they take 2 feet off the side of the building to give more area, you know, what will that do? It doesn't sound like much, but it probably would make the building significantly smaller. Smaller building also has less intense use, less parking demand, everything else. Combined side yard setback, 14.67 versus 15. I'll agree with Mr. Flannery's anticipated response that that's the minimus on that one. The other one, 34% building coverage versus 30%. That's a pretty substantial jump over building coverage. It sounds like, oh, you're only 4.3% over, but it's really a lot more than that. Now, I'm not a math mind, so I can't explain it, but when you're only allowed 30 and then you take 4%, that's more than 10% bigger than you're allowed. That's how I look at that. It's not like, well, you're only over by 4%. The building's really 10% bigger than it should be. So, you know, the question is, and I think you're looking at it the right way, if you make them pull the building into the setbacks and make it conform, it will probably make it significantly smaller, and that might give room for more parking, and it might make it less intense and fit better. Mr. Flannery is correct. This is a conforming use. If they make the building comply with all the bulk variances, then it's effectively a by right application. So, you know, you want to use the leverage of the bulk criteria to make it less intense. I think that's what it comes down to. And Mr. Flannery went through all the positives, but, you know, I'm sure he'll acknowledge that there are negatives. I think whenever you go over the bulks, that's negative, so you have to weigh.
I'd just like to add that it's my,
Just one second, I'm sorry. Brian, how many parking spaces, if we take off the 800, so 1,200, so
We need 5. We need four and change, so we would say 5.
right, and you're giving 5.
We're giving 7. And again, I want to
Your
reiterate
testimony is that you're not asking for any variance
on parking. And I want to reiterate again that if we make the building 30% and 7 feet from the property line, a combined 15, and we reconfigure the steps in the back so they're not in the 15, the building will be, as Mr. Jackson said, about 11% smaller. I don't think you're going to get less use at the building. We're not going to get any more parking. All we're going to do is make the residents that attend there, the congregants, a little more crowded in.
What about the buffer? It says in the review letter that a 20-foot buffer is required.
The fence that we're proposing, in my opinion, meets the intent of the buffer, and it's something that is typically waived.
Okay. But if we had a 20-foot buffer, that would take a big bite out of your building, right?
Yes, it would. Yeah, 20 foot on each side on that lot would,
It's useless.
it's useless.
It would be useless, you'd only have 10 foot
Yeah,
left.
yeah.
I just wanted to just mention that even if you can require 30% coverage, it's not gonna change the main sanctuary size. Main sanctuary size is gonna be the same size, meaning you're not gonna have any less people.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for any board members? Okay, we'll open to the public now.
Shlomo Klein.
Please raise your right hand. You affirm the testimony I'll give before the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. I heard from the back, there's a new attorney over here. I want to congratulate him. I heard that he's the son-in-law of Mr. Penza. So if that is true, welcome to the club.
Thank you.
Also, I want to say is, welcome to the township of Chelm, not because the mics are not working properly,
The township wide?
of Chelm.
H-E-L-M. For the record.
That still doesn't help, but now I know how to spell it.
It's a fool.
The applicant shows architectural plans, and on the architectural plans, there's seats of 150 seats in this synagogue. 150. And he is coming over here and saying he's providing only 7 parking spots. And I know he's saying this is compliant with your ordinance. But all I could say is that your ordinance is consistent with Township of Chelm, not in a township, in a professional township like Lakewood, New Jersey should be.
Mr. Klein, there's another way to look at it. That's that the parking standards are very liberal in recognition that a lot of people walk to service, and also to just facilitate the development of this type of facility. So it's a balancing of interests. It's not necessarily foolish. And, you point out what the consequence will be, but that's what our legislation provides for.
Thank you. And also, I want to ask Brian, how did he calculate the parking? It's like 100 square feet to give, per 100 square feet to give how many parkings?
I calculated the way I always calculate for a shul. The ordinance says up to 800, you don't have to provide any. Over 800, 1 per 100 square feet, up to 2,000. 1,200 some minus 800 is 4 and change. The ordinance says up to 800 square feet, no parking is required. If you exceed 800 square feet, you need to provide 1 for every 100 square feet that you exceeded up to 2,000. We exceeded by 400 and some square feet, divided by 100 is 4 and change. So it makes a parking requirement of 5 and 7 are provided.
The reason why I'm asking, because by the plan review meeting, in the video, we see that the attorney, Mr. Penzer, the Schwer so sagen sind, he said that the way he's calculating it, he's taking off the beamer, he's taking off the Stormschaffers, he's taking off a lot of stuff in there. I don't know when that was calculated, was accordingly to Mr. Penzer's explanation or beforehand, but I guess Mr. Brian also doesn't know because he doesn't make the comment, so I'm not going to ask him to answer on that. The only other thing that I want to ask about is the basement. Brian over here came up and said there's nothing going to be in the basement, but on the architectural plans, there's a full-fledged mikveh. I don't know if there's such a big mikveh in Lakewood the way it's proposed over here. This is going to be like the mikveh of the town. So you're talking about, I don't know how many stalls is over there, I don't know what the calculations of mikvehs are, and if he's claiming that it's going to be a simcha hall, that should be calculated too. If he's making a basement, we know it's going to be used, and we know that you can't control usage. And even if he's making an empty basement, he doesn't make anything in the basement, I think the clock is going up. But I'll finish anyways. Even if he doesn't make anything in the basement, they could go, technically if there's existing building, they could go today into the inspection department and get permits for it and not have to calculate the parking. Debatable, yes or no, but they used to do it till now, they didn't calculate. So if he's making a basement, first of all we have to know is what he's doing in the basement because the plan is inconsistent with what Brian said. I'm not saying that he did anything wrong, he just doesn't know. What? A mikveh in the basement. He said there's nothing going to be in the basement. And he's going to use it as a simcha hall or not use it, but there's a mikveh. Mikveh has requirements. I don't know the UDO, what the UDO says in this as far as parking, but there's parking requirements for a mikveh. So just want to mention that. Thank you.
Mr. Klein, for the record, how is a mikveh used? Is it during the week? Do people drive to it? How many people would use a mikveh of that size at a given moment? Does it have a staff?
Again, what I'm going to say over here is going to support the applicant, but I'll say it anyways. Usually a besmedish, if it's a men's mikveh, usually tends to be used by Hasidim that they use the mikveh middle of the week, not so much the Lithuanian Jews. So if Hasidim generally drive less in Lakewood than Litvaks. So if this applicant is a Hasidic shul that is going to provide a men's mikveh, I could assume that a lot of the applicants are not going to drive coming to shul. So that helps the parking problem, if that's what your question was.
I agree.
Chairman, I understand most of what he's explaining. I just feel for the stenographer who has no idea what half of these words are, what they mean, or how to spell them, and is doing her best to take a legal transcript of this meeting. Please try to use English words where possible.
Yeah, please, speaking of everybody.
That's right.
Please state your name, the stenographer, and the written.
Mordechai Shodran.
Please spell it slowly.
Mordechai. Mordechai. Last name is Swandron.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give before this board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I just got the notice of seeking a variance on Friday. I think they were supposed to send it a little earlier than that. They were like these papers that ended up in my front lawn. A lot of the neighbors did not get the notice, I'm
Sent
sure.
and received are two different things. They just have to send it within 10 days.
Putting it on the front lawn, is that called sending?
No.
Okay, so it was not, there was no mail involved over here. So it was not sent.
The records that I have are that the post office stamped them as received on May 12th. So those are the certified mail receipts that I have. They're certainly available in our file if anyone wanted to check them, but.
None of the neighbors I know received any of them. You know,
200 feet of this.
yeah, it wasn't 200
See
feet.
on the 200-foot list?
What was your, I'm sorry, it was
I'm
Mordecai.
not, within 200 feet, but I spoke to people within 200 feet.
Well, you don't.
Okay, so
You're satisfied that the notices are adequate? Please proceed with your next issue.
there are two cul-de-sacs in this neighborhood, and there will be, the cul-de-sacs increase people piling in and causing traffic and safety concerns. There are already safety concerns. Safety concerns are more important than shuls. There are two shuls that are being completed now, one within 50 feet and one a few hundred feet away. We still don't know.
What are your safety concerns? Let's focus on that, not other shuls.
Mainly illegal parking, which the shul has no control over. There are too many people coming to the neighborhood. There's an oversaturation of shuls. The congregants of this shul do not live in the neighborhood. They're walking, some of them I know are walking over a mile to get in. The reason why they're getting this property is because it's centrally located. It is not going to increase the quality of life or the quality of davening or shul for anyone in the neighborhood. If they spoke to anyone to try to convince them that it's going to be in their benefit, I don't know. But I started putting together a petition. Everyone I spoke to is opposed to the shul.
Your concern is with parking?
Safety. Safety more than anything else. I don't think the township is able to control what's going on right now. There are two shuls that are ready to be. There are two
I
shuls.
think the board recognizes what you're saying and understands that. I don't think you have to elaborate.
And I think
they live in Lakewood, they know.
And I think the point that you made, they're not coming here for a 7-inch variance. I think the 10% difference can make a difference whether the shul is a substantial shul or a not substantial shul. I wish there would have been more time to see what the options are, but at this point, I think we should not give any variances. Maybe we could discuss what things can be done to improve the situation in the neighborhood before, or at least wait until the other shuls are completed to see what the consequences are before we give any variances.
Thank you. Where do you live there?
Next door to Stone.
Next door to Stone?
There is never a day when there aren't people parked, not only till the corner, but beyond the corner. Kids wait for the buses, no one can see them. There are accidents there all the time. Serious safety concerns which I brought up, and everyone alleviated my concerns when they gave the variances. Most of the things that they said they will do, they did not end up doing. Besides putting in a sidewalk, which did help a little bit. I'm sure there are things that can be done, but there wasn't enough time to discuss yet. But at this point, I think no variances should be given. I'm hoping that it won't come, we'll make it 7 inches smaller. I think it's going to be a lot smaller.
Mr. Shadron, The variances they're asking are minor.
I think that they're major. I think it's gonna make a major.
He's testifying that they're not asking for any variance.
I would like to see the plans, the difference in plans between the one with the variance and the one without the variance, to see how minor it is. We're talking about zero variances.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else from the public like to be heard? Please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Raphael Newman, R-A-P-H-A-E-L, N-E-U-M-A-N.
Mr. Newman, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm?
I
The
affirm.
testimony we'll give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you. Please proceed.
A few years ago, prior to the new apartments being built behind the old Princeton Avenue Public School, a few years ago, prior to the new apartments being built behind the old Princeton Avenue Public School, I attended this forum. I remember the lawyer so proudly assert and state the statistics of college apartments giving less than one parking space per apartment, and they were going to give more than one parking space per apartment. We knew then, and you can see now, pass by any night and you will see a full parking lot and many cars parked on Mary's Lane. I do not live immediately next to the proposed shul. I live on Park Avenue, a few houses away from the proposed shul. Having a Sephardic synagogue diagonally across the street, a new Skolen synagogue down Park Avenue, the Stolen synagogue and the yeshiva on East 7th, having another synagogue will add to the diversity of the attendees and add to the enjoyment we have seeing all the congregants walking to and fro from prayers every Shabbos. I speak on behalf of myself and the neighbors I spoke to. We ask that due to the parking constraints, there be no party hall in the basement of the shul. I do not know the zoning requirements, but providing ample parking for the congregants needs to go even beyond the letter of the law and zoning. We ask in the path of the great Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, and in the ways of the holy rabbis of Alexander, to respect the congregants and neighbors of the new synagogue and provide ample parking to those that will attend the synagogue. The amount of required parking spaces should be based not on disillusional statistics or faulty traffic studies, but on actual reality. Thank you.
Sir, I see you have a written transcript of what you were reading from.
Yes.
Is that typed?
Yes, it is.
It would make it a lot easier if you could give that to the court reporter to assist her.
Okay,
Is that
sure.
okay with you?
That's fine.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
Michael Flam, F as in Frank, L-A-M as in Mary. And Michael is an American name. You got it.
Please speak loud into the mic so we can hear you, please. Sir, and you have to be affirmed.
I affirm.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony?
I affirm.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Okay. To make it short and sweet, I understand that there are a lot of other organizations and facilities, institutions in the area. But if they're complying with the ordinances as far as parking, and parking is a major deal in this town, but as long as the rules have not been changed, then the rules are the rules and they are complying with those rules. As far as the variances, and as far as the question about the basement use, Mr. Karras pretty much said it, but the sanctuary itself, which is where the prayers will take place, which is the main function, will not, according to what I'm being told, will not change regardless. It's the ancillary uses that will become smaller. The steps in the back is just for ingress for women. It'll be easier for them to enter and to make all kinds of turns and whatnot to get in. So, again, that's encroaching on the back, and so on and so forth, other than the buffer, which I know nothing about. So, in the spirit of houses of worship being in residential neighborhoods, I just wanted to give a plug out there. Now, I do not belong to the Alexander sect. I do pray where they are now. They're hoping I go along with them there, and it's up in the air. So I'm just here to present with what's going on. that parking is by ordinance and the sanctuary, and even if there is a simcha hall, it would all be based upon how many congregants they have, so nothing would really change. If you have a safety concern, there's a safety concern, and that's within the rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public like to be heard, please come forward.
Evening.
Please state your name for the record.
Yehuda, Y-E-H-U-D-A, Shapiro. U-D-A, Shapiro, S-H-A-P-I-R-O.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that testimony you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Please proceed.
Please proceed.
When sitting down to discuss what we're going to be doing, how we're going to go ahead with this building, one of the things that came up was making a simple. The reason why it's not on the plans was because we did take the neighbors into consideration, understanding about the parking. I had spoken while sitting here with Mr. Shvadran. He had brought up a good point, and it's something that I would love. I know that it would be the township committee that would have to do it. Would be to put up the proper signage about no parking from where it has to be till the corner with the yellow curbs. That does help, and that's not something that we have to do. That's the township. I had told him that at the end of the day, we will be. His father davens across the street from us where we are now, and he comes in. He knows who we are. He knows that we're fine people. We'll deal with them. I told him I feel bad. We didn't know that he was there before, and so we are taking them into consideration. All the neighbors. We'll try to whoever we spend the neighbors within 200 feet. One neighbor we were able to reach out to. He couldn't make it here tonight. The other one, we couldn't. We tried. We couldn't find it.
For the record again.
Yes.
The basement is be a mikveh.
Going to be a mikveh. No hole at all.
No hole at all.
No hole at all. There is a kitchen on plan that's going to be just for Kaddish on Shabbos. Just upstairs. That's for parties on Saturday upstairs. Where I'll show this things like that.
What's the ladies' kitchen?
So that the ladies don't have to go downstairs and we don't have to schlep upstairs, but we don't have to bring everything upstairs. Let them have their own things upstairs, just to make it easier for the ladies. So like then they don't have to get from us downstairs.
What about, did you say there will be a simcha hall?
No, not at all. Not at all?
No simcha hall, okay.
No simcha.
Mr. Klein whispered in my ear that there was a simcha hall, but I guess your
If I could-
testimony is there's not.
If I could reiterate, the reason why there's no simcha is because we took the neighbors into consideration. That is the whole reason why there's no
Thank you, I
simcha.
just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a nice money maker, but the neighbors came first.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the public like to be heard, please come forward.
Isaac Scholar. S-C-H-O-L-A-R.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Now for the record, if Mr. Klein has declared our township felon, I propose the chief rabbi. I think it's apropos. You should just Google search it, then you'll laugh. I just wanted, as being a member of the group, I just wanted to bring something to the attention of the board and the attorneys. Currently, we are renting facilities, which happens to be located smack in the middle of a residential block. We do have services and gatherings there. We've been active for 7 years in that location. The only concerns of the neighbors that we've ever heard is how can they get more involved or if they ever need to participate in services. So it's not like we're approaching a new topic or a new subject of dealing with neighbors and living with neighbors. We are in existence, and even now during our existence, we do live with our neighbors. And it was really nice to see that Rabbi Flom, who's actually a neighbor who joined our shul, actually came to speak in our favor. So if that would help in your decision making, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public like to be heard on this application? Please come forward.
My name is Yishai Harari. Y-E-S-H-A-Y-A. Y-E-S-H-A-Y-A. Harari, H-A-R-A-R-I.
Mr. Mr. Harari, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I am a neighbor down the block, and I just want to say the same concerns as the other neighbors has said, that there's a very serious concern about safety. My children, young family, they do run freely as much as I try them not to, but that's what happens. My children have a young family, and they do run freely, and there are cars going in and out of driveways, stuff like that, and especially on the cul-de-sacs, people do go a little fast, and there has been a couple of close calls. And therefore, I feel that it's something that the township should address, and I don't know what you can do, but whatever you can do will be greatly appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public like to be heard, please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Yehuda, Y-E-H-U-D-A, Y-E-H-U-D-A, Dewick, D-E-W-I-C-K.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Please proceed.
Okay, I don't come from a family from Alexander, but I've been praying there for the last few years. I do live nearby to this new location, a very short walk away, and I wanted to say, when they had this meeting several years ago about should they make a new synagogue, should they make their own place, I questioned the rabbi from Israel of Alexander. I questioned him, are we building it for Alexander, or are we building it for the neighborhood? And his answer was very emphatic for both. I want my people to be happy, and I want the neighborhood to be happy. It should be somewhere that everyone's happy. And that's the attitude I've seen all the years, is that they let anybody get up there and lead the prayers, and there's no discriminating against anybody, any type of, we've had people praying with the yeshiva, in the yeshiva style, and the Hasidic style, and any style, and everyone seemed to be very happy.
Okay,
Thank you.
I feel like I need it lately.
Anybody else from the public like to be heard, please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Chaim Gutman.
What?
Chaim Gutman. C-H-A-I-M-G-U-T-M-A-N. M-A-N.
Mr. Goodman, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. One of the neighbors mentioned that we didn't try to reach out to the neighbors. We actually did. I personally sat and spoke to the neighbor Haber, and across the street a neighbor, I forgot his name. We did try. We're trying everything to be fair and good to the neighbors. I wanted to say one point, that the building size of the sanctuary is not going to make a change. I mean, if we have to make it smaller, the parking is going to be the same, and the main sanctuary is going to be the same. The only difference is the coffee room. The only difference is the coffee room will go downstairs to the basement instead of being upstairs. It's going to be a hassle for people going up and down. The main sanctuary is going to be the same. The amount of people are going to come there is going to be the same. The parking is going to be the same. I'm just asking you to take into consideration and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to be heard? Mr. Goodman, you live in the area?
I live 10 minutes walk.
You live in Temple? And you never come to the car, you always walk. Okay.
My name is Eli Schwartz, that's E-L-I-S-C-H-W-A-R-T-Z. Good evening.
Mr. Schwartz, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I affirm. I live down next to Monmouth Medical Center Southern Campus. I do walk quite often to that synagogue where they're located now. The synagogue where they're going to be moving is much closer to my home. I'd say throughout the year, 3 times a year, I do drive my car over there. And I feel that the place where they are located now is very cramped together. And I think a bigger sanctuary would be help for the community and a help for the people that participate with that synagogue. I am not part of the sect. I like the people over there, and that's the reason I do walk quite often to that place. And I would say it's about a 45-minute walk. So I would appreciate if we had that approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just want to say, after hearing the testimony over here, I don't object to this application, I actually support it. Thank you.
Little rabbi, right? How many people in the audience here are for this application? Raise your hand. How Okay, we'll close it to the public.
We just learned that if you make Mr. Klein a rabbi, he supports your application.
Brian, I'll tell you, and we'll like to hear what the witness is saying, but yes, I don't, no simple hall.
And the applicant agrees to that.
Okay, to me, strictly only first. And one question, how many times a day are you going to pray? To be
Regular once, 3 times really. 1 million. 1 million mincha ma'ariv, shachris mincha ma'ariv. It's one time for morning, afternoon, and evening. Yeah, 3 services a day, one time for each service. It will not be a minion factory.
Let's go through a few things. The sidewalks is going to be there, curbs and sidewalks.
Yes.
And parking, you said you had, there was 7 parks.
We had 7 where the ordinance requires 5.
And, is a turnaround, how's the park, show me how the parking.
No, it's stacked park. There's no turnaround, correct.
You make a turnaround?
There'd be no way to make a turnaround here.
Okay, here it's not so, it's not counting on really, it's different. Any other questions from any board members?
Who could use the mikvah?
Anybody go on the phone?
I want to stipulate only members of the congregation. I'd like to stipulate only members of the congregation can use the mikvah, not open to the public.
Shouldn't be open to public because we don't have enough parking. Okay.
You agree to that as a condition of approval?
Yes.
Yes.
If anybody like to make a motion?
They like it.
The neighbors can go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, please keep your voice down. It's difficult for the court reporter. I'm sorry, Mr. Flansbaum, please continue.
I'm going to take a motion to approve the building as proposed with the following stipulations. That there's not going to be any simple hall in the, there's going to be no party room in the basement. The mikvah is going to be for members only, right? And that was it.
Only one step.
Right, right. That, there's only going to be one service in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one in the evening.
We have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Hipperson.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Herzl.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Zagrafos. Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor, is that your first?
Please leave quiet.
You're 1-0. You have a much better percentage than Mr. Penzer. You're batting 1,000 right now.
Yeah, it's the first one. Everybody was easy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job.
Let the record reflect it's the normal ones who are.
Thank you. Mr. Grunberger, our board member on the end, has just arrived. Number 4 is application SD 2144 made by Haima Body. This is a minor subdivision to create 3 lots from 2 on Shady Lane Drive.
Dave, if you'd like to go through the report, please.
Yes, for zoning, the project requires minimum lot area variances. The current plans show proposed lot area is slightly over 10,000 square feet, where 12,000 is required. It should be noted that if there's a right-of-way dedication required along Miller Road instead of an easement, the lot sizes will be reduced to under 10,000 square feet, and the applicant's engineer should clarify exactly the number that they're asking for the variance, so that the board approves the correct thing and it don't have to be turned.
they don't have to.
have to return to the board for amendment. Lot width variances are required. One lot's proposed is 77.10 feet, the other 69.18 feet, whereas 90 feet is required. A side yard setback is required for proposed lot 11.02. The reason for the side yard setback variance of 3.5 feet, where 10 is required, is to allow the wood deck to remain. Combined side yard setback is required for proposed lot 11.03. They propose a combined side yard setback of 20 feet, whereas 25 is required. Side yard setback is required for an accessory structure, which is for the existing shed to remain on proposed lot 11.03. It appears that the shed is 3.58 feet from the sideline, whereas 10 feet is required. And it is not clear whether there's off-street parking relief required. The applicant's engineer indicated in their letter that the off-street parking on proposed lot 11.02 is an existing condition. Appears that there's 3 spaces provided, and we're not sure if 4 are required. And so the testimony should be given about that also. And the only other thing is design waivers, planting of street trees, as well as providing curb and sidewalk along the project's Shady Lane Road frontage.
Hi, good evening. I do not have an attorney. I'm sorry, Chaim Abadi, A-B-A-D-I. First name C-H-A-I-M. Last name A-B-A-D-I.
Everybody, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you give before the board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I affirm. Basically, this is not a business deal. This is my daughter's house, and I'm looking to build another house next to it so that I can build her a house. I'm sorry.
Speaking to the mic, please.
This is my daughter's house, my daughter's property, and I'm looking to split it up in order to be able to get her a better house, a bigger house for herself. We got the neighbor who had a problem because he only has a 50-foot wide lot, and if he would want to build on his lot again, he would have a problem because it requires septic. The 2 lots that face Shady Lane, they will have sewer. But Brian will give you the full roundup.
Fine, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you give before the board with the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. Brian Flannery Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner. As Chaim indicated, this is an application for 2 existing lots. I have 2 renderings. A1 is the minor subdivision map that's submitted that shows in red how we're proposing to chop the property. And A2 is a map of the area. It's a compilation of the tax map, and it's a classic per cal map that shows in blue the existing lots that are already undersized in this area, and in orange I've outlined the 2 subject lots. In the block where this property is located, there are 10 existing lots that are undersized. And then in this whole R12 area to the south of Miller Road, there's another 18 of them. There's flag lots in the area. The green lots are the flag lots. Now, I had a similar map to this in June of last year for the, if you look to the top left-hand corner, that's highlighted in yellow, which was an application that was approved by this board in June of last year. And there was an application on Carasalgo on the other corner that was a couple years before that. And the purpose of highlighting those lots is to show that there's 3 lots in this area that have that are unique in that they have more frontage than other lots. And when the application came in on Carasalgo many years ago, it was indicated there's only 2 other lots like this, So it's not going to be replicated other than 2 other times, and it fits in with the area. Last year when we came in on the corner of Forest, we said the same thing, there's only one left, it's Heinz Daughter's lot, and we would anticipate to be consistent with development in the area. We have lots that are wide enough. If you look at A2, the 2 lots that are front on Shady Lane are consistent with the area. We take one of the lots, which is along Miller Road, which is undersized right now, only 50 feet wide, and we make that bigger. And we reconfigured the 30,000 plus square feet to come up with 3 lots that exceed 10,000 square feet that'll fit in the area, that'll have nice buildable houses. Now, the one thing you also see when you look at this is there are some other lots in the area that are more than the 12,000 square foot that's required by the zone. But they don't have the frontage that this lot does, where it would lend itself to another subdivision, so that this would continue going and it would degrade the neighborhood. This would be, and last June when I came in, I said there's going to be one more of these. Now I'm telling you that there's no more of these. This is a piece of property that, in my mind, it subdivides nicely this way. You take a resident that's lived there for quite some time, wants to stay in the area, build a nice house, and this accomplishes that. Looking at the report, it indicates the variances that we're asking. Lot area, 12,000 is required, and they're all 10 plus that we're proposing. Minimum lot width, 90 feet is required. We have 2 of them that require relief from that at 69.18 feet and 77 feet. I think if you look at the other lots in the area, there's a lot of, this is a very nice area of Lakewood. Right across the street, you have a couple of very nice houses going up where there were older houses being redeveloped. This is an area that's redeveloping with nice houses, and there's nice houses that are built on the 50-foot wide lots. We're doing 77 and conforming widths. Side yard setbacks, we're asking for relief to the existing condition of the deck, where we're asking for 3.5 feet instead of 10. Combined side yard setbacks, we're asking for 20 instead of 25. The lot is a little narrow. We're going to give 10 feet on each side, which is the minimum required, but we're asking for relief on the aggregate. Side yard setbacks, 3.58 feet is for the existing accessory structure. Item 7 in the report speaks about parking where there's only 3 parking spaces. The existing house is a 3-bedroom with no basement apartment. 3 parking spaces is more than sufficient. The RSIS and the Lakewood ordinance would say 2.5, 3 have been provided. The report goes on with providing testimony on dry wells, on stormwater, which we would do dry wells in accordance with normal procedures. We would provide curb and sidewalk and consistent with normal township procedures. The other items in his report we've addressed. When we look to the master plan, in order to balance these C2 variances, the master plan of 2007 on page 35 has a section on housing, and it indicates there's been a tremendous residential growth in Lakewood in recent years, and this trend shows no signs of abating. We all know that. It goes on to conclude, for all this growth, however, not all of Lakewood's housing needs are met.
For all this growth,
However, not all of Lakewood's housing needs are met. The same municipal, the master plan of 2007 on page 56 indicates to encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. And it's my testimony this is smart growth for that area. The municipal land use law, NJAC 40:55D2, under the purposes of the Act, says to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. It's my testimony that this is the appropriate use of this property. Under G, it says provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial uses. And it's my testimony that this is a type of residential use in this area that is appropriate. We're requesting C2 variances where we need to show the benefits outweigh the detriments, and there's 5 things that we need to show relating to that. The first item is that it relates to a specific piece of property. And as I indicated at the outset, this is a corner property with 166.5 feet of frontage on Shady Lane. This is a unique property. There were 2 others in the area which the board has subdivided into 2 lots. We need to show that the purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced. And those were the purposes of the act that I read under NJAC 40:55B2. We have to show that the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, and that's really the impact on the surrounding properties. And some of the surrounding properties being much larger than the 12,000 square feet, may feel they'd rather see larger lots here. But when you look at A2 with all the other houses that fit in this development and it all works well, it's my testimony that the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. And we have to show the variance will not impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. And one application like this, in this area, in the R12, where this is the final lot that would be applicable to this type of development, certainly it's my testimony that variance can be granted without any impairing the intent or purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. And then we have to show the benefits outweigh the detriments. And the benefits are we take an older house and we provide new upgraded housing. We provide the housing opportunities in the ordinance, and we provide for redevelopment. Sewer and water will be provided to this. Currently, the area is on septic. The sewer water would be provided on Shady Lane. Curb and sidewalk would be on Shady Lane. So it's my testimony that the benefits outweigh the detriments.
Brian, how many the total parking spaces will be?
The new houses will have at least 4 parking spaces that comply with the ordinance. The existing, it has an existing driveway with 3. It's only a 3-bedroom house with no rentable basement apartment, and certainly 3 parking spaces has been sufficient. Mr. Body, who lives on Miller Road, pretty close, can certainly verify that.
Any questions from the board members?
The one issue that Dave mentioned with respect to the county, we feel that the county, and if you look at A2, you can see that the widening that's needed is on the southwesterly side of the road. There's a consistent 60-foot right-of-way. The county already did a road project there. There's sidewalk installed. If the county wants additional right-of-way, we would propose it as an easement, and I feel comfortable that the county would accept a road widening easement. The most they would want would be another 3 feet. And typically what they want is they want the pavement in the right-of-way. They would not agree to a road widening easement where there's going to be pavement, but since they're never anticipating pavement being wider than 30 feet from center line, that would be wider than Route 9.
You have sidewalks on all?
Yes.
There's a sidewalk on all?
Yes.
So you don't want to ask for the slightly less square footage?
If the board was inclined to indicate areas less than that, I'd certainly be happy. While the public's talking.
Would be that? 1102 would be that.
Or I can just read what Mr. Kachuga handed me. 11.01 would be a 9,604 square feet instead of 10,007, and 11.02 would be 9,668 instead of 10,094.
I mean, my point is, the board should consider that, because if you approve the larger lot size and they don't get the easement, then they have to come back and see you again.
And the applicant certainly would appreciate if that de minimis change could be incorporated if the board acts favorably on the application.
Thank you. Any board members have any questions? Seeing no one, will open up to the public. Anybody from the public would like to be heard, please come forward. Please state your name.
Adina Natan,
Push the, hold the mic down.
ADINANATAN.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I affirm. I'm Chaim Abadi's daughter. I am the one who lives at this house, 11 Shady Lane Drive. We've been there for 8 years. I really want to stay in the area. It's where my family lives, my sisters. We've looked at other homes in the area, and there's not really anything in our budget. We're a growing family, and we're really growing out of our small home. In order for us to be able to afford a bigger house, we would need to sell off the extra lot. So I asked if you could please consider my father's request to subdivide my property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to be heard, please come forward.
Lloyd McClung.
Do you swear or affirm testimony you will give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm. I'm confused because Brian said they're not asking for any waivers for curbs and sidewalks, and the engineering report, before the engineer said this, they do asking for waivers, so I'm confused.
I think what he testified is that they will now provide curb and sidewalk.
Is that correct? Brian, is that correct, that there's no waivers of curbs and sidewalks?
Yes, the testimony is that we're going to add curb and sidewalk on Shady Lane, and there is, the county did the road project on Miller, and that has curb and sidewalk.
One more thing I want to mention, and nobody should take this personal, please. Chaim Abadi is a great person. One of the, I think, the greatest person in Lakewood. Wait, I didn't finish yet. No, there's nobody like him. But he's also one of the lobbyists that, and he's a great lobbyist. If anybody has a problem with zoning planning, go to him. He's great. There's one issue that I have that constantly came up, that applicants speak to the board members before the meetings, and that would be illegal. So my question is to the professional and the applicant that testified over here, did they speak to the board about this project before this meeting?
This has been coming in front of the board for around 6 months already. It kept on getting carried and pushed over and moved and.
I haven't spoken to any of the board members. Sean Obama. Chaim, C-H-A-I-M, Abadi, A-B-A-D-I. Thank you. I have not spoken to any board members, except for saying hello. I have not spoken to any of the board members about this application, except to say hello, as I do every meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, could you testify to the same?
First of all, I'd like to say I think that's an inappropriate question, but the answer is no. No, I haven't.
Thank you. And just to mention, again, Chaim is a great guy. His daughter looks like Bru Karadavi, but Bas Karadavi. But it's a Yiddish phrase. It's actually Hebrew. Actually, it's Armenian.
Actually, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Next time you should have learned more in yeshiva, you would have known. But just for the sake of what he's asking over here, if I understood good, not objecting to that application, I'm just mentioning what he's asking. Not to go down one zone, he's asking to go down 2 zones. It's a R12, I didn't finish yet, you will have your time. It's a R12 going down to something that he's asking for 9,000 something square foot per lot. So if I know correctly the zones, it's less than R10, it will become R75. That's my calculations. Could be Brian will want to testify differently, but again, I'm not objecting to application. Who could object to Chaim? He's such a great guy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to be heard, please come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Moshe Blech, 135 Forest Drive. B-L-E-C-H.
Okay, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, I affirm. I live in the direct impact zone of this project, and I feel I'm uniquely qualified to comment on the project, because not only do I live there, I also have investment properties on the same block. And I feel that it'll accomplish a few things that are good for the neighborhood. The house that they're taking down in the back could use an update. It looks like a trailer. And the area in general, it looks like a trailer.
What's wrong with the trailer?
We'll talk about it later. And the area in general will get cleaned up and look nicer with the new homes. Additionally, it'll help our tax base. We'll have more taxes in it. We can hire more teachers. And I think it's a great idea to approve the project.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to be heard? Seeing no one come forward with closing the public, I'll ask for a motion.
Offered.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Coleman, a second by Mr. Flansman. Your roll call, please.
Mr. Grunberger.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin. Mr. Hibberson.
No.
Mr. Flansbrough.
Yes.
Mr. Herzl.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Zagrafos. Yes.
Thank you.
Now, I have to leave now, so.
Yes.
Turn it over
Thank
to
you.
Mr. Franklin, will you take over the meeting? Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Have a dinner, and I apologize.
You want to take a few minute recess in case it's Donato for needs break? Yeah. Mr. Franklin, we're going to take a few minute recess if that's all right. Everyone needs a break while you get settled.
I swear.
Yeah, like. Yeah, I mean, this is how it should be done. You actually have testimony, the positive and negative criteria. True, this is, I think, the direction it's going.
Excuse me.
How many more cases? Ally, how many more do we have? That-
All extensions.
Where are we?
7.
Kelm was the town food.
I was just,
That's what the problem was. So he's the rabbi of that town.
oh, I looked it up already.
Basically, he's the king of fools. I second that one.
I wasn't stopping because I was expecting it to be long. I was just, while Mr. Franklin was moving, trying to remember to be courteous of our guest stenographer so that she's not too afraid to come back in the future.
Oh, she's never coming back.
Jackie said she had to reach out to like official firms that provide the services because the usual people that she calls on won't, people don't want to do boards anymore, not even just Lakewood. They don't want to do planning and zoning boards in general.
So we were special.
They do make more, I think, here than other places because we're so difficult, but it's not enough.
The applicants pay for that one, no?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true, the applicants pay for
I
it.
think you have to write a dictionary. They have something to flip through.
I guess you can say that. It's different, though. Well, I guess you could at least compare it, like you said.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true, yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line.
Thank you.
Hey, anything. Might actually get dinner. No, I doubt it.
Somebody from the board asked why.
As soon as our members are back, Mr. Trenton. Yes, Mr. Flansbaugh. We're about to start.
That said, you gave the right answer. That said, you gave the right answer.
I'm an interrupter, yeah.
Not when he's doing this, not.
Going out and find it.
Ready, Mr. Coleman?
This one's kind of special, we only have 10 feet for the data center. Why? Let's see if it will. There's no way. I want to try.
Not much. We're waiting for Mr. Flansbaugh.
I bet he would appreciate that with
Just extension application, we're gonna take one of them out of order because Mr. Kashuba is only here for one of them and Brian's doing the rest.
You're gonna go to number 10. Because Brian has all the rest.
We can take that one if you'd like.
Yeah, let's just go ahead with number 10.
Okay. Application SD 2153 for Mayor Kaufman. This is an extension of a minor subdivision to create 3 lots. Were there previous extensions on this one, Mr. Kashuba?
This
Some of
is
them-
this is the first, sorry, Joseph Kashuba, Kociuba, KBACIUBA. Just how it says. From KBA Engineering Services, here for an extension. I believe this is the first extension requested. The application was approved November 1st, 2016. As the board's aware, we have 190 days to perfect the application. We have to request an extension. So we are here requesting that extension. We are still working out details on the site with regard to water and sewer. And as a result, are requesting a one-year extension.
Okay. Do you have any questions of the board? Okay, we have a motion? Open to the public? Motion.
Do we open the
Open to the
public for
public, I'm
extension?
sorry.
Extensions, you know,
Open to the public.
there's no downside.
Okay.
Well, wait, let me rethink that.
I can say that I have the resolution from the original approval. We had 2 residents who spoke in favor of the application, and Mr. Hobday had spoken with some concern about the variance conditions, but he was the only one.
I'm not objecting to application, I don't even know what it is. I just have one question about extension. How does it work? Why certain applications need extensions and certain not? That means I'm like reading the whole subject. You have a lot of housing in Lakewood that was approved and they don't come for extensions. Why certain ones do come? If somebody could explain it to me.
That, this forum isn't.
So explain it on this one.
I can't give legal advice like to, I just can't give someone a lesson or legal advice on an application.
I'd be happy to explain it.
I'd be happy to explain as well.
Please explain it.
Okay, the Municipal Land Use Act allows for the board to give an extension on an application. The intent of the timeframe is for us to dot our i's, cross our t's, get our necessary approvals, and if those take longer than we anticipate, the Municipal Land Use Act allows by right to gain extensions to gain those things.
I believe, and in furtherance of that, Mr. Klein's question, I can speak to simply because I sign the subdivision maps and give a deadline for filing, for when they get filed in the county, to create the new lots. Minor subdivisions have an expiration date 190 days from when they're approved. Major subdivisions, the big subdivisions with new roads and 20, 30 units, not these little guys, have an expiration date of 95 days from the date of the signature on the map. So the clock for major subdivisions doesn't start ticking until they have resolution compliance and are ready to actually go towards filing those maps. Whereas the ticking clock for minor subdivisions start from the board approval, regardless of how quickly they get through resolution compliance. So you typically will see extension requests for minor subdivisions on a much greater scale, much more often than you do for major subdivisions or site plans.
If the board were to ask me.
There you go.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to read, do you want me to? You're good. Okay.
I wouldn't mind hearing what you have to say.
You know what I'll refer you to section 23.51 in Cox. You can take a look at my book. I don't want to give like advice on something because it's not that simple. There's different extension periods for different types of application, different standards, there's reasons for every application. It's not something that you can just answer and, simply. Except to say that if somebody does not perfect their approval within the time frame, they're allowed to come to the board, explain the reasons why, and ask for an extension within the limits. Now, there's consequences of different extensions. So it's hard for me to just give a dissertation on the whole thing.
Thank you, I'll do my homework, thank you.
Okay. All right, any further questions? No. We have a motion.
What's the downside to this? Like, what would stop us from giving an extension?
If the board wanted to rescind the earlier
Well,
approval.
what was this one for, a site plan?
This is for a minor
Minor
subdivision.
subdivision.
Typically speaking, the downside would be if the town rezoned the location and had a different intent from a planning perspective for the area.
Any crazy variances here?
There were variances granted for lot area, as I recall.
Oh, we stopped doing that, so maybe we shouldn't give those cases.
Lot area, lot width.
That's enough of a reason not to give an extension, I think.
All right, what's the board's feeling?
Could the board not grant an extension because they've changed their mind on whether or not to approve the subdivision?
The basis for not getting your perfection is that you were hindered by some outside agency. Like you couldn't get county approval, or you couldn't get DEP approval, if that's a condition of approval. So, I mean, it's really on them to show why they did not get their approval. Maybe they were waiting to get the bond estimates, I don't know. Whatever reason, that was beyond their control. I suppose you could deny an application if they just forgot about it and it sat in the drawer for 150 days.
It's an R20 and they're going down to under an R15, right?
Yes.
Like, we've had the resolution there.
Yes. It says, and you have the plans as well, which I assume match. It says 20,000 square feet is required, whereas each of the proposed new lots would contain a minimum of 14,500 square feet.
So specifically, as we identified, obtaining approval for utilities has been problematic, so that is the reason for our extension. As far as I know, the MUA is bringing sewer to this area, but we do require, at this point, septic designs. We're in the process of perfecting those and getting those approvals. We don't have those at this time, and the board engineer does require us to demonstrate utility connections as part of the application. So under that criteria, that's why we're requesting the extension.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion? Second. Have a motion to move it? Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, roll call please.
Mr. Grunberger. Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Hipperson.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Bowman.
Yes.
Mrs. DeGraffo.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to read this to the board this is what the statute says. The planning board shall grant an extension of minor subdivision approval for a period. I'm breaking my own rule. The planning board shall grant an extension of minor subdivision approval for a period determined by the board, but not exceeding 1 year from what would otherwise be the expiration date. If the developer proves to the reasonable satisfaction of the board that the developer was barred or prevented directly or indirectly from proceeding with the development because of delays in obtaining legally required approval from other governmental entities, and that the developer applied promptly and diligently pursued the approvals. The developer shall apply for the extension before what would otherwise be the extension of a minor subdivision approval, or on the 91st day after the developer receives the last legally required approval from other governmental entities. That's for minor subdivisions. It's different for major subdivisions. You know, there's different time periods. That's what I'm saying. It's not that, when we get a major, I'll read the statute for the major.
Wait till we get a major.
Right. I can tell you're fascinated, Mr. Frank.
The rest are all mine.
Thank you.
Merciful. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
SD 2173 for Shula Milowitz, extension of a minor subdivision to create 4 lots from 3 on Joe Parker Road.
Brian Flannery, do I need to be sworn for this, John?
Do you swear affirm testimony you give before the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. The 190 days for minor subdivisions was something that they came up with like 40 years ago, when you could get it done within 190 days. You need county approvals now, you need health department approvals. It's a ridiculous number. The reason the board hasn't seen these for 10 years is because there was a Permit Extension Act, so nothing expired. Starting in June, everything's going to expire, so you'll probably see every minor subdivision come back for a permit extension. This one is on a county road, dealing with the county. You can't get done in 6 months, so the applicant needs time to get it done. I'm just respectfully requesting the extension.
Okay. Open to the public?
I'm
just trying to, just continuing on the previous conversation, I'm trying to understand this. When you get the final approval, that means you have to start building, or it's a final permit? What is that? That you don't need an extension anymore?
You have to file the map.
So once you file the map, you don't need to start building whatever you get approved, you just need to file the map. It's just a filing and map process
That is correct.
that he didn't do. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not on this one.
Okay, what's the board pleasure?
I'll move the motion to approve the extension.
It's moved,
Second.
moved and seconded, roll call.
Mr. Grunberger.
Yes.
Mr. Hipperson.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Zagrafos.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is SD 2063 for Ellie Schwab, an extension of a minor subdivision to create 3 from 1 on Joe Parker Road. And I believe this has previously had a 1-year extension back in, July of last year, when we had anticipated that the Permit Extension Act was going to expire at that time.
Yes, and this particular property, again, on a county road, the county required an easement from the neighbor. They just got that, so we're requesting the 1-year extension.
Can we go for a second extension? Okay.
Yes, my understanding is they can get up to 3 1-year extensions.
3 1-year extensions on them, okay, let me double check that. But
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this? What's the board's pleasure?
I'll move it, I'll move.
Motion moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Grunberger.
Yes.
Mr. Hipperson. Mr. Flansbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Zagrafos.
Yes.
Done.
The next is SD 1963 for Nachman Tao. This is a minor, extension of a minor subdivision to create 2 lots from 1 on Reed Place. And there was a previous 1-year extension in July of last year as well.
And this one, the problem was with the Ocean County Health Department. There was a neighbor's septic that was impacting the facilities. They finally worked that out, so we're respectfully requesting a 1-year extension.
Okay. Open to the public?
Yes. When the concern that I have is just a technical. When you have such a long extensions, there's a very likelihood that the property was sold already to somebody else. So the question becomes, when you file the application, if you still need to file old affidavits because it's different ownerships now. You heard my question? I asked it from Brian, but it was probably a legal question. The question is, when you have a property that is asking for 2 years already extensions, there's a very likelihood that the property was sold, and therefore the affidavit was not updated. So if that's the case, could Nachama Taub still ask for an extension if she is not the owner of the property anymore? Or, usually you have affidavits to support that, and usually when you have somebody comes to approval 2 months ago, you could assume.
It's not really clear what the procedure for any of this is. The statute says you really only even have to give notice. If it's so many acres, I'm trying to find it right now, but I don't know that you have to give notice. I don't know that you have to have public input. I don't know that you have to put people on the road. There's really no instruction in the statute. So, common sense would tell me that stuff isn't so important. It's just a question, did you not perfect your subdivision? Why not? Is there a good reason? Then okay, we'll give you another year.
Thank you.
Like, why give them a hard time,
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr.
I
Grun.
made the motion. Mr. Flansbaum made the second.
Mr. Grunberger.
Yes.
Mr. Hipperson.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mrs. Zagrafos.
Yes.
The next is SD 2140 for Yeshaya Ackerman. This is the first extension request for a minor subdivision to realign lot lines.
This is the application where the neighbor wanted a little more in their backyard to do the pool. Working with the neighbors has taken more time, and they've made a deal now, and they're ready to close and move forward, so they're respectfully requesting the additional year.
Okay. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Okay.
Second.
Moved and second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Grunberger. Mr. Hipperson.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin. Mr. Folman.
Yes.
And Mrs. Zagrafos.
Yes.
Okay, the next is SD 2170 for Thomas Rosenberg. And this is the first request for an extension of a minor subdivision. It looks like to create 3 lots from 3. I know there was a lot of adjustment.
Yeah,
in that
it's a
area.
realignment for Mr. Rosenberg. There was a prior minor subdivision that was done, that was just filed, so now they're preparing this one to be filed with the county.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, that's easy.
Didn't seem too enthusiastic.
Should have done that before.
And the last is SD 2131 for Heshi and Rivka Weiss. Minor, extension of a minor subdivision to create 2 lots from 1 on East County Line Road.
And again, we're dealing with the county planning board, which they don't get things done in 180 days anymore, and we're requesting the extension.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Close to the public.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
And finally, on the agenda for tonight, we have 4 Oak Street administrative minor subdivisions, SD 2261 AO, SD 2262 AO, SD 2264 AO, and SD 2265 AO. As usual, there are copies of the board engineer's review letters at the bottom of the chairman's plan stack. I did look at them, as did the board engineer, and found that there were no variances requested and that they are in conformance with the approved Oak Street capital plans.
And I think these are the last 4.
I think they are. I
I think
haven't
so.
gotten any more applications since these.
Okay. Anyone in the public wish to be heard?
Well, he's not missing his last chance. Huh?
It's not my last chance because it's not the last 4. There's a lot of NASA Avenue, they're waiting for the vacating the streets, and or they'll come over here for variances, so be ready. There's a lot of Oak Street corridor still coming. And Justin, you might still need to approve single families over there that they left for you. So the question that I have to the board, I just don't want to make you look bad, but do you know how many units you're going to approve over here? Just with a flip of a button? Just a number?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll tell you what the number is. It's 16 duplexes. Just, at least you should know what the numbers are. Thank you.
Okay. Is anyone else from the public? What's the pleasure of the board?
I move the motion to approve.
Motion approved. A second, have a second. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Grunberger.
Yes.
Mr. Hipperson. Mr. Flansbrough.
Yes.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Folman.
Yes.
Mrs. Zagrafos.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have the public portion. Anyone in the public wish to be heard?
Yes, one small comment. A few months ago, Payback Lakewood sent an email to the board members mentioning something about an application that he felt was, whatever in his opinion was not right. And the board attorney answered them, and so to the board members, it's ex parte, and they should not be communicating with ex parte, yeah. They should not be communicating with the public before the meeting. They should be open to the public. The fact that application didn't have anything to do with the public because it came to the public, they didn't let the public speak, so it was not a thing that was open to the public, it was just a technical thing. But in my information, there was just recently an application, Cedar Bridge Development, that I know for a fact that the Rosh Yeshiva from Lakewood, Rabbi Rucham Olshin, called up the Jewish board members on this board to vote down that application, and then they decide, the applicant decide to pull it. I have no, this is not a matter about that application, it's coming across that a lot of applications, they're communicating, the public and the applicant is communicating with the board beforehand. As the direction of your board attorney, he said that it's illegal to do it. I'm just mentioning this because I still have this understanding that these actions are still going on. So I'm just mentioning it in the public portion. And if I'm wrong, that I didn't understand right, I apologize. But my understanding is that his ruling, the same attorney's ruling, still stands. Thank you.
I have a clarification, Mr. Klein.
What?
So I'm trying to follow what you said, I'm sorry. I usually you're very clear and I understand. Somebody has to be nice to him. So.
Thank you.
So are you saying that we should not have paid attention to the email from Take Back Lakewood, or we should have?
Again, if it's illegal for him to communicate, the same, I think the law stands the same. If the public should not communicate it to you, you shouldn't communicate to the public. So as your board, I think since then he didn't do it as far as mentioning any application because it's accordingly to your board attorneys. But the problem is, it's still coming across that there's action. I'm not saying you or anybody else. I'm just saying it's still coming across that this board members, some board members are speaking to the members of the public. And if anybody knows, the first time I came to this board meeting was about a camera. And one of the board members, actually was the chairman of the board then, sent a text message to the objector that if I don't put down, I was representing the objector then, in a rabbinical court. He said, if I don't put down my camera, they will approve the application against the objectors. And this was a text message sent. So again, I heard this from Mr. Ackerman, that this is standard of the board members speaking to the members of the public, and we see it all the time. If I go over to a member of the board, sometimes they'll speak to me. So again, I'm not saying I don't want to be different than anybody else. I know if everybody else is speaking to the members of the board, I want to speak to the members of the board. But if the board's attorney's opinion is that it's illegal, the board members have to know that. And I'm just appalled that it's not being followed.
Well, I think Mr. Jackson's legal advice has been consistent, telling us not to listen to read an email from the public. I don't know anyone that's speaking to anyone before an application. I could say in my career there was one time many years ago that someone approached me and I had planned to recuse myself from the application and it ended up being pulled anyway. So it wasn't an issue.
This was a question made by Mr. Ackerman yesterday, actually not yesterday, by the committee meeting, for the workshop, and he asked if anybody in the public approaches a board member and speaks to him about application, if he has to recuse himself from voting on it.
I don't know. I don't know. I have to leave that legal question to Mr. Jackson. My personal opinion is, you read things in the newspaper. You're exposed to these things all the time. I think for me, it's a personal question of, am I now tainted? Is this now influencing the way I'm making a decision? Do I feel I have an obligation to someone? But I'll let Mr. Jackson answer.
It's hard to give an absolute rule on a planning board, which is a quasi-judicial board. I think there's a lot of things that pull in different directions. First of all, the board has a political component because you have the mayor, a committee member, and someone who works for the administration on the board by statute. So of course, the mayor, someone could talk to about a pending development because it might affect the town. And I think that, and this is just my philosophy on this, but the general rule is no ex parte communications. In other words, don't speak with an applicant about the substance of an application. Do I have a problem with an applicant calling the chairman and saying, I'm going to be late tonight for the hearing, or, can you adjourn this to the board secretary? There has to be some latitude for some types of communications. But as a board member, the general rule, all the information that you get should come from that microphone while the person is on the road. Can you stop certain things? Like, remember I had a hard time with the person who held the sign up. That's an ex parte communication because they don't take an oath, they don't put their name. So, but as a general rule, it's quasi-judicial, and I think most legal minds would agree it would be improper, and you use the term illegal. I'd say improper, illegal. I don't think you're going to get arrested for it. But it should strictly be on the record so that everything that comes in is from what came from the microphone. And planning boards, unlike juries and judges, have the latitude to go look at a site too. You know, and if you're at the site and the homeowner takes you out to the backyard to show you where whatever is that okay? I mean, I think you have to use your judgment and common sense, kind of put out.
Are we allowed to talk to the public, member of the public?
No, I would strongly recommend against it, because when you review the board's decision, the court has to know what your decision is based on.
A couple of months ago, I was sent something from new requirements, and I think they said that we're not talking to the applicant. I don't remember saying that you're not talking to a member of the public.
Your decision should be based on what comes from the microphone while the person's under oath, or, you know, correspondence that's part of the board's official file. And, you know, like I said, sometimes a board member will call me and ask me about a conflict or, you know, legal question.
So the only way for the
It's
board
not,
to
nothing's absolute.
know how the public feels about it is only hearing what they say here.
Right. It's really, it becomes problematic when somebody gives you information that's outside the board hearing.
I think Mr. Klein's point, at least from what I can tell, when I have applicants or objectors or neighbors with questions or concerns, they want to know, well, who's on the board? And I think it's because they like to say, well, I know this guy. When I see him in shul, I want to, you know, pick his brain and let him know I have complaints about X, Y, Z. So I think there may be, I don't know the extent of it, but I think there is the belief that there's some casual conversations about things, whether it be questions that maybe the board can answer that someone may not understand the procedure.
That should really be avoided, you know, if somebody comes up to you and says, what's the planning board like? And you say, well, they're very nice, just, you know, get over it. You know, it's, don't talk about the substance of the applications with people. Don't let them influence you, don't let them lobby you.
And you can certainly default people to me for questions. I get it all the time on our procedures and on the substance of applications. You know, I can help them to the best of my knowledge. So.
But everyone knows this. I mean, that's the way you've been operating for years.
All right.
Okay.
And the only public portion, that's it? Okay.
Bills.
Bills. Approval of minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Approval of bills.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? So carried. Adjournment.
Thank you.